Morning. Today we are going to take a new chapter, our last chapter, chapter 6, the continuity of generation. In this chapter, we are going to study how the next generation is formed in human beings, in microorganisms, how the next generation is formed. That is, how reproduction takes place. Okay. So, firstly, we can see about the mode of reproduction in microorganisms, how they are multiplied, or how the next generation in a microorganism is taking place. We can see that. Okay. That is bacteria, fungus, and hydra. Three microorganisms are given here. Microorganisms means those organisms we cannot see without our naked eye. So this organism we cannot see with our naked eye. We can see only this organism using a microscope or lens, likewise. We can't see directly this organism. Now we can see how they are multiplying. Bacteria, binary fission. Binary fission, and existing cell divides to form two new cells. You can see in the picture a single bacteria is divided to two new cells. Under favorable conditions, rapid multiplication of organisms like bacteria take place by binary fission. So, if a favorable condition for them to multiply comes, at that time, what happens? This bacteria will divide into two new cells. Single bacterial cell will divide into two cells. You can see in the picture. Then fungus. Fungus is spore formation. The mode of reproduction in fungus is spore formation. Spores are minute cells that can survive in unfavorable conditions and develop into new organism under favorable conditions. So even though they are having unfavorable condition, they can live under the unfavorable condition, and they will develop when the favorable condition comes. This is a type of asexual reproduction. So spore formation in fungus is a kind of asexual reproduction. Next organism is hydra. In hydra, by budding. Buds are formed in the parent body when it grows. You can see the picture of the hydra. From the side of the mother hydra, a small hydra is growing. And when it grows, it separates. When the small hydra grows, it separates itself from the parent body and develops into a new organism. So these are the different kinds of reproduction in microorganisms. Bacteria, binary fission, fungus, spore formation, and in hydra, budding. Is it clear for you? So this is the mode of reproduction in microorganism. Here only three organisms you have to study. So many different organisms, microorganisms are there, and in them different kinds of reproductive methods are also there. Okay. Now next is about the fertilization. Fertilization, how fertilization takes place in plants. You have heard about pollination. What do you mean by pollination? Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of the flower, from one flower to the another flower. For pollination, who is helping for the pollination? Different pollinating agents are there. Some insects are helping for the pollination, then butterflies, then bees, then wind, water. Likewise, different agents are there for the pollination. And during pollination, what happens? The pollen grains from one flower is deposited, is taken and deposited in the stigma of the another flower. Is it? Then for attracting these pollinators, the flowers will be having different colors and attracting colors. You might be thinking why flowers are having different attractive colors, because in order to attract the pollinators, and also having a fragrant smell. Night blooming flowers with the white color and will be having nice fragrant smell, will be having because during the night time, in order to attract the pollinator, in order to attract the insect and night blooming, the flowers that bloom in the night is having white color and will be having nice fragrant smell also. For example, jasmine. Jasmine blooms during the night time. It is having the white color and very attractive smell also, fragrant smell also it is having. All these characters are there for the night blooming flowers for attracting the pollinators that are helping them for pollination during the night time. Is it clear for you? Next, how after pollination, what is happening for this pollen grain that is deposited on the stigma of the flower? You can see that now what is happening for the pollen grain that is deposited on the stigma of the flower. So fertilization in plants we are studying now. You can see in the picture pollen grain on the stigma of a flower. You can see that in the picture different parts of the flower is given there. That is the internal parts, stigma, pollen tube, then generative nucleus, tube nucleus, all these things I will discuss it now. That is pollen grain contains, you have seen the pollen grain on the stigma, that pollen grain contains two nuclei and the name of the nuclei is generative nuclei and tube nucleus. The pollen tube develops from the pollen grain that falls on stigma and grows towards the ovary. You can see a tube is developing from the pollen grain and it is growing towards the ovary. Then, along with this, the nuclei in the pollen grain also enter the pollen tube. So, along with this pollen tube that is growing towards the ovary, the nucleus present in the pollen grain also enter into the pollen tube. The generative nucleus divides into in the pollen tube to form two male gametes and the tube nucleus disintegrates. So I have already told you in the pollen grain two kinds of nucleus is present, generative nucleus and the tube nucleus. Generative nucleus divides into two male gametes and the tube nuclei disintegrates. Then one of the male gamete that reaches the ovary through the pollen tube fuses with the egg. You can see in the picture egg. So one of the male gamete that reaches the ovary through the pollen tube fuses with the egg form zygote. We have studied what is zygote in our earlier chapter. Zygote is the single cell that have the capacity to multiply and divide. The second male gamete fuses with the polar nuclei in the ovary. You can see in the picture polar nuclei. The second male gamete fuses with the polar nuclei in the ovary and endosperm formed from it. And the endosperm will be formed from it. Zygote develops into embryo. Embryo means the small plant, a baby plant. And endosperm becomes the stored food needed for the embryo's growth. Is it clear for you? So the pollen grain that is falling on the stigma of the flower consists of two kinds of nuclei, that is generative nucleus and the tube nucleus. Generative nucleus divides into two male gametes, tube nucleus disintegrates. Then through the pollen tube, this male gamete, one of the male gamete this male gamete reaches the ovary, and inside the ovary, one of the male gamete fuses with the egg and form the zygote, and the other male gamete fuses with the polar nuclei and form the endosperm. Is it clear for you? Zygote will be developing into the embryo, small baby plant, and endosperm will be developed into the stored food that is needed for the growth of the embryo. Is it clear for you? That is about the fertilization in plants. Next, we are going to study about the fertilization in human beings. So, fertilization, before studying about the fertilization in human beings, we should know about the male reproductive system and female reproductive system. Now we can see the male reproductive system, different parts of the male reproductive system. So, Here you can see the male reproductive system. In that, one of the part of the male reproductive system is vas deferens. You can see the vas deferens. The duct that carries sperms from the testis to the ureter. So, testis, the sperm that is produced in the testis is carried through the tube-like structure that is known as the vas deferens, and the sperm is produced in the testis. Then, prostate gland produces secretion that contain factors required for the nutrition and movement of gametes. Gametes means sex cells are called as gametes. For the nutrition and movement of these sex cells, prostate gland produces some secretions. Then comes the penis, formed of specialized muscles and blood spaces. Urine and semen comes out through the duct ureter inside the penis. Then it helps to deposit sperms in the vagina. So this penis helps to deposit the sperms in the vagina. Then testis seen inside the scrotal sac. Testis is seen inside the scrotal sac, and it produces sperms and male hormones. So testis produces sperms and male hormones, and this testis is seen inside the scrotal sac because the testis is seen inside the scrotal sac because temperature. Testis also produces testosterone hormone. For that, and the sperm production also needed temperature less than the body temperature, that is 35 to 36 degrees temperature is needed for the production of the sperm. And the scrotal sac help to maintain this temperature. That's why testis is seen inside the scrotal sac. Then you can see sperm. And what is sperm? Sperm is the male gamete. So male sex cell is known as the sperm. So sperm is the male gamete. It is motile and microscopic. That means it can move, and it is too small. We can't see with our naked eye. It is microscopic. The sperm has a head. You can see in the picture. The sperm has a head, then middle piece, and a tail. So sperm has three parts, that is head, middle piece, and a tail. Then mitochondria present in the middle piece provides the energy for movement. So mitochondria, you all know that cell organelle mitochondria. The main function of the mitochondria is the energy production. So this mitochondria that is present in the middle piece provides the energy for the movement of the sperm. Then nucleus that contains paternal chromosomes is seen in the head. So the nucleus that is contains the chromosome of the father that is present at the head of the sperm. Then sperms are formed inside a pair of testes located in the scrotal sac outside the abdominal cavity. So these sperms are formed inside a pair of testes, and this testis is present in the scrotal sac. That's about the male reproductive system. Okay, so the main thing you have to remember is the male gamete is sperm. You have to study about the difference between male gamete and female gamete. Male gamete is sperm. And next we are going to study about the female reproductive system and about the female hormone and female gamete. Male gamete is sperm, male hormone is testosterone, and testis, the part testis in the male reproductive system produces the male gamete and the male hormone. Now we can see about the female reproductive system. Okay. Female reproductive system consists of the ovary. Ovary produces ovum, and and female hormones. So like testis in the male testis produces the male gamete, that is sperm, and the male hormone testosterone. In female, the hormone and gamete is produced by the ovary. So ovary produces ovum and female hormones. Then fallopian tube or oviduct. Vast difference in male, in female, fallopian tube or oviduct carries ovum to the uterus. Then fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube. So the fusion of the sperm and ovum takes place in the fallopian tube. Then uterus, fetus completes its growth in the uterus. So the fetus is completing its growth in the uterus. Then endometrium. Inner layer of the uterine wall is called as the endometrium. So the inner layer of the uterine wall is called the endometrium. Fetus grows by adhering to the endometrial wall. That means the fetus grows by attached to the endometrial wall. Then comes the vagina. Vagina is the part through which uterus opens and sperms are deposited here. So in the vagina, the sperms will be deposited. Then the female gamete, that is ovum. Ovum is the female gamete. It is larger than a sperm. We have told that sperm is microscopic. Ovum is larger than a sperm. Then ovum is non-motile. In the case of sperm, sperm is motile, have movement. Ovum has no movement, that is ovum is non-motile. Then specialized protective layers are seen outside the cell membrane of the ovum. You can see in the picture, specialized membrane present on outside the ovum, and those protective membrane is present outside the ovum. And so if a question comes about the difference between sperm and ovum, you have to write these differences. So that is, sperm is motile, ovum is non-motile. Then sperm is microscopic, ovum is larger than the sperm. Then sperm is the male gamete and ovum is the female gamete. And we have told that fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube or oviduct. But in the case of if fertilization does not occur, what happens if fertilization does not occur? That means you can see endometrium, the inner layer of the uterus. So along with the ovulation, every month the ovulation will be happening. If a girl is mature, every month ovulation is happening. Along with the ovulation, the preparations for the growth of fetus take place in the uterus. So the preparations for the growth of a baby is taking place inside the uterus of the mature girl every month along with the ovulation. So the endometrium, the inner layer of the uterus, thickens and more blood capillaries and glands begin to develop. So the endometrium, you can see in the picture, endometrium, the inner wall of the uterus will become thick and more blood capillaries and the glands will be formed, produced at that time. But when fertilization does not take place, what do you mean by fertilization? Fusion of male and female gamete. That means fusion of the sperm and ovum produces the zygote. That is the fertilization. That process is fertilization. So if that process does not take place, ovulation taken place, but it is not fusing with the sperm, what happens? All the preparations inside the uterus for the growth of a baby is of no use. So then what happened? Then the newly formed tissues get destroyed. So every month for a mature girl, what happened? The newly formed tissue, if fertilization does not occur, the newly formed tissues will get destroyed. And they peel off from the uterine wall and uterine wall with the blood and the mucus. This process is called menstruation. So, and it will be discharged or given out through the vagina, and this process is called menstruation. It may last for 3 to 7 days. So, the menstruation cycle it may last for this 3 to 7 days. Then about the menstruation is a natural biological process that takes place in girls as a part of their physical growth. So, menstruation is taking place in the girls as a part of their physical growth. Then, menstruation starts early or late in accordance with their food habits, then heredity, then hormone, all these things are related, and all these things depend on the late or early coming of the menstruation. Then it last the end of the menstruation period is about years is 45 to 50 years. So maybe for some people, maybe the menstrual cycle stops at the age of 45, and up to the age of 50, and menstrual cycle will be repeating within 28 days. Menstruation cycle will be repeated for the matured girl. So this is about the menstruation. I think it's clear for you. If you are having any doubt regarding this, we can clear through the WhatsApp. Okay, so read the chapter, clear your doubts. Okay, then thank you.